if some of you, I don't know if some of you can actually relate with this, but I know that there are certain people who, even when we're in school, in medical school, then they were in medical school, but they didn't even know why they were in medical school. It wasn't something they picked for themselves. Their parents either decided they wanted them to become medical doctors and told them to study medicine. Some people just picked it because, no one really talked to anyone when they're in secondary school to tell them, okay, this is what you would experience should you enter medicine and all of that. You just do it because, they tell you you're smart enough. Why don't you go into medicine? And it can sometimes get you to a point where you're sitting down feeling like you're at a destination, but you don't even remember how you got here. You're supposed to be at the next destination, and it's not necessarily your idea to go there. So I did say that if you're feeling very stressed or anxious about how you got here, let's say, for example, you're on this platform, or you even know somebody who is in medical school now and is almost like at their 4th, 5th year, and you know that this is not necessarily something they wanted to do. There are so many forces behind it controlling it. I usually tell people to find a tether. Your tether could be so many things. You can find that out by yourself, or you can ask other people. I happen to personally have also gone into medicine because it was what I was supposed to do. I was told that you were smart enough, so go into medicine. And I do remember in my 3rd year of medical school thinking I had made a big mistake. And then I found psychiatry. So psychiatry ended up being my tether. And I don't know what that would be for anybody on this platform or anyone you know who has the same problem, but that's the same thing I would say. Just find a tether. You won't float around for long if you find something that you can at least hold on to that gives you back that result. The next phenomenon that I'm going to talk about is one that is very popular. I think anybody who is old enough should have heard this story. The man, his son, and the horse. And when I talk about that most of the time, when I talk to young people, it actually has to do a lot with comparison. That's another thing that can cause a high stress or increase anxiety at this stage of your lives. When you're constantly comparing or living your life hoping to please other people or hoping to please somebody else. While, of course, there is a lot to benefit from having role models or having external guides, like, wanting to do this because I want to make my parents proud, for example, or, oh yeah, this person in my class is doing much better than me. Why don't I push myself to do better and all that? While these things can be good, you always have to try and make sure that the perspective, you're doing it in a way that it's not you're not now beginning to feel inferior or less than, if I'm making any sense. You want to make sure, because what this story tells, if I were to shortly tell the story of the man, his son and the horse, there was a man and his son. They were going to sell their old horse. As they were walking to the market, the man, first of all, got on the horse. And when they were passing strangers, some strangers were looking at the young boy and they felt, why would this young boy be walking? And this old man, why is he on the horse? Why doesn't he let his young son walk? Or rather, ride the horse. And then the man gets down and his son climbs the horse. And then they pass another group of strangers and they say, why is this wicked young boy on the horse? Why his old father is walking? And then the man feels like, okay, you know what? Let nobody get on the horse. And both of them get off the horse and they are walking the horse. And people are like, you know what? Why are these two people? They are useless. Why can't they just be on the horse? Two of you are walking and there's a perfectly good horse that you can find. So they decide, you know what? Let's both get on the horse. And they both get on the horse and people are saying, look at these people. This is animal cruelty. Why are these two people overbearing this horse? The moral of the story is, if you predominantly live your life looking to please other people, more often times you will find that you can't actually get the world to give you a, sign off on everything that you do. There are certain things, like I said, always put that in perspective. There are certain things that would always be true. I mean, everybody wants any of you, like your teachers, your loved ones want you to all graduate and do well. Yes, you should try to do that. But I'm talking about situations where you find that something you're measuring with either somebody else or something else, and it's causing you a great deal of stress and anxiety. Try to find a way to do that in moderation. The next is what I call the surface mentality. I remember being where you people are and all of that. And I remember having a whole lot of people who wanted me to believe that they never really experienced failure. This surface mentality addresses failure and success. Life will come with failures. Holding yourself to a standard where you deathly fear failing, can cause you a great deal of stress and anxiety that could cause you to suffer an anxiety disorder, and even worse, maybe sometimes start coping negatively. A sufferer is well, if anybody, I mean, we almost always, all of us have to see that on TV, because I don't believe anybody surfs here in Nigeria. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think anybody surfs here. But a surfer, you have these people who climb, who are like riding the waves and all that on a surfboard. And a surfer knows that when he catches a wave, at some point he's up there riding that wave. But they will get to a point where, however long that wave is going for, it's going to fall. And then when it falls, the surfer gets into the water and then swims for a while and waits for the next wave to come. That's what life can be like sometimes. It is perfectly okay sometimes to experience failures, while you're not supposed to aspire to fail. I'm not giving this thing and telling people, you know, be okay, rest on your laurels and don't try to do your best. Do your best, but understand that it is possible for you to do your best and still fail. And it's not, don't count yourself out because of that. You will find that sometimes some of the most successful people that you look up to would have gone through their own series of failures. And what makes it, I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but the popular term of it isn't how hard you fall, is how many times you get back up. Really do try to understand that you can get back up. Say you've done your best for this exam, you failed. Understandably, you will be sad about it. Nobody wants to fail an exam. But you can't then, you know, self-destruct and then feel like it's not worth it anymore, or feel like you try not to let the fear of failure keep you down, you know? Try not to let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. There's so many coined phrases for that some of these motivational speakers use. Well, I'm bringing this up now because I do remember being at this stage of your life, and I do remember having that fear that, oh my God, what happens if I fail an exam and all of that? What happens is you will try again and try to do better the next time. And it's not going to be the end of the world should things not work out your way. So yeah, and I talked about here that the frequency of each wave coming and the duration of riding each wave will be different for everybody. The truth is, we're all on different journeys. There are some people who have more successes, or seemingly have more successes than other people. Some people, you find that maybe you know this person who has passed most exams, they're riding on a distinction wave and all of that. We're not all the same. Try your best not to compare in that way. You can do your best to push yourself, but understand that we are all given strengths and weaknesses in different places. So you may not have the same story as the other person. And another thing is, everybody sees us, not wishing the people who are not, I'm not trying to wish the people who are doing well now bad, but people have different times. Someone who is not experiencing the best season of their life now could actually experience the best season of their lives better than the person who is now in a couple of years. That's life. And trying to remind yourself of that, you know, whenever you're in any down season is actually going to really help with coping with anxiety. Another phenomenon I talk about is the bee versus the fly. I'm basically summarizing all of this now. A bee would fly through vast areas of acres of garbage to find the one flower that is there to pollinate. The opposite is the case with the fly. A fly will fly through a whole meadow growing with grasses and all that to find the pool or anything decaying there to fetch on. It just, or this particular one addresses optimism versus pessimism, and also like your perspective. What are you going to focus more on? The things about you that are not working out right, or the things about you that are? The truth is, while we should always try to better ourselves, like at every point in time, try not to hold yourself to such a very strict standard that even with the things that you do well, you don't actually pay any mind to them. You pay and define yourself mainly by the things that you don't do well. It's always going to cause you a lot of anxiety. It's always going to put you in a state of this negative mind space and could even tip you into depression as time goes on. So in life, we all need to try to find the flowers in our lives and focus more on those things that we're doing right than the things that we're doing wrong. Now, finally, this is the part where I try to tell as many young people as I meet, you are not alone. You see that, again, that person that you admire, that older person that looks like they have everything figured out, they don't. And at some point, even when they're at your stage, they did go through a lot of what you're going through. We as human beings were built for companionship. So if you do find yourself struggling, you have to try to remind yourself that it's okay to ask for help. It depends on, you have to sometimes put it to yourself to make sure that you ask people that are right. So you can start first of all by a smaller circle, like you can ask about your friends. I did put your parents here. I know that sometimes, especially because of the way parenting is done traditionally here in Nigeria, maybe your parents may not be the first people that will come to your mind, but the truth is a lot more parents are beginning to understand the need to parent from a mental health awareness point of view. However, I do understand that they may not be the first people for you to reach out to, which is why I keep telling anyone, if you can't talk to your parents about some of these things, understand that there's nothing you've done that is really the worst thing anybody has ever heard, especially if you're talking to a psychiatrist or clinical psychologist. Or maybe sometimes, and again, try to be careful about this, religious leaders. There are more people now who are beginning to understand the need to help young people navigate the ups and downs of life and all the uncertainty that comes with, wondering, what would be if you were to take this path and what would be if you were not to take a certain path. So if you can't ask your parents, try asking your siblings, try asking your friends, your relatives. And then if the people in your personal life are not people that you think you should go to, or if you haven't gotten enough help from there, the stigma around talking to a clinical psychologist and a psychiatrist, these are the things that we're trying to break down. And a lot more of us have broken them down. You can walk into our clinic, for example, and talk to somebody there and tell them, like, especially me, when people come to me and tell me that they want to talk to me about something and all that, I listen to them. If I can't take it on myself, because unfortunately I haven't started off my own private practice, I still make referrals to clinical psychologists and people like that I've worked with that can help you people. So so asking for help is something that every one of you should consider if you do need it. And there's always somebody who is going to be there to help out. So that's actually where I end this. Like I said, I didn't want this to be academic, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ugwuamaka, for this wonderful period with you. So at least I've taken what you've said about the TEDA. So I hope to find my TEDA very, very soon. Thank you very much once again. So we're going to give a period of 5 minutes for questions from viewers, from everyone here. So if you have any question, kindly raise your hand and you'll be allowed to speak. This will last for about 5 minutes. Or you could send them by way of chat to me personally, and I could read them out to her. Any question at all, you can just either raise your hand or you send it by chat. Okay, one person has a question. Onyekwelu Onyebuchi, you can unmute yourself.
I think I'm going to probably chat. Okay, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I have the question is going to go like this, related to the speaker. Okay, medical school has been quite, it has come with its up and downs, and transform into its own form. So I feel like not using the motivation and the resolve. I know I've dealt with anxiety in my own personal way. Try to not overdo, not overthink too much. But coupled with the workload, right, like medical school, I feel it's even me being in 400 level. I've passed through the hurdle of second MBS, third MBBS. So I feel like I'm losing a kind of motivation to push further because this stress um, once I'm done with third MBS, fourth MBS is going to come. We'll go to it has its own up and downs, it has its own difficult moments. Not only that, fifth, the final MBS. So I've not been, I've lost kind of motivation to actually want to push forward because I don't really know if medicine has so much, if there's so much, if there's so much in store as a medical doctor. So, and I also want to ask direct the question to her. How did you know psychiatry was what you wanted to do? How did you know how and what kind of um, patients do you actually find in the field? Are there any people with serious mental issues in Nigeria? Because I've not really seen, I've not really heard of. I don't know how it's going to, how that field is going to be. So I'll be happy if you can respond to my question. This is so I don't know what I mean, but that's my question. Thank you.
All right. So yeah, I'm sorry that you feel overwhelmed with medical school, but I'm pretty sure even if almost everyone will tell you, going through medical school, if you've not gotten to a point sometimes where you feel like, why did I get myself into this? Some people may be lucky not to get to that point, but a large number of people probably did get to the point where they felt, why did I want to do this? Which is why I talked about what I talked about at first. The truth is that it's easier sometimes to go through something difficult when you're sure as to why you got in, which unfortunately is not the case for a lot of us because again, one thing that we lack here in Nigeria is that thing. I mean, we copy a lot of things from white people, but we haven't copied that yet. Where in secondary school, you have things like a career day, where these courses are explained to young people, because a lot of people just fill those forms because. And sometimes you find yourself getting into this situation where you're in medical school. Like you said, the exams just keep coming at you, they keep coming at you, and you find yourself sometimes feeling exhausted. However, what I will say is that I've never really been one to tell somebody, just if it gets too difficult to quit. I've never been one to tell somebody that. I think that sometimes you should try to see things through as much as you can. However, what I have been trying to tell a lot more people now is, thankfully, the world is going to a place where the world is not one-dimensional anymore. I know a medical doctor who currently right now is a whole lot, is very, very successful, and he's an event planner, and he's studied medicine. I don't know if you people are familiar with this, the musician Peruzzi. Peruzzi studied medicine. He was in my school in Ukraine. So he did study medicine. So what I'm trying to say is the way it was for me was being in my third year in med school. I felt like I had written this exam, and I was asking myself why I had gotten myself into. And I attended my first psychiatry class, and it just clicked, because one of the things I tell people, I'm not a prescriber. I'm not very I don't feel fulfilled or satisfied with the part of medicine where my patient tells me what is wrong with them and I give them a medication to treat it. I'm not satisfied with that part of medicine. I am, however, satisfied with the part of medicine where when my patient sits in my chair and tells me that they feel burdened with medical school and all of that, I can take the time to sit down and tell them, guess what? I was there too. I somehow was able to just work my way through it. I found a tether, which was psychiatry, and I worked my way through it, making sure that I passed my exams and I came out here. And I also know this person and this person who happen to do the same thing. They are doing something else different with their lives now. What I'm trying to say is, my advice to you is find something that you love to do. For me, it was this. I actually started doing this a long time ago. Before I even became a psychiatrist, I found out that I liked talking to people. I found out that I could talk to people and somehow meet them at a place where they actually needed something. So once I started doing that, it did help me find out this thing to graduate. And it helps that psychiatry is a branch of medicine too. So that helped me. But I'm saying that even if you want to do something else in the future, see through that you finish, because it is good to finish anything that you started. But don't think that because you studied medicine, all you have to be is a medical doctor. There was a time when that was true, but it's just not true now. The world actually is now open enough for people to be or do as many things as they want to do. It's just something you have to commit to. You asked what kind of patients I see and what is psychiatry like. The truth is, unfortunately, a lot of people hear psychiatry and the only thing they think is schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, mania, for example. So that's the same reason sometimes when people hear that someone is seeing a psychiatrist, they say the person is a mad person. But that's not true. Funny enough, like I said, the part of my career as a psychiatrist that has given me the most joy is doing this. There's a reason almost every time any one of you calls or says they want a seminar where I talk to people and all that, I almost never say no. It's this is what I love to do. This is what I do as a psychiatrist. What I do for the most part is, apart from the point where if my patient, for example, has an anxiety disorder and I think they need an anxiolytic, I will prescribe that because, again, I am trained to do that. But what I try to do, the part of psychiatry that I love, is going further to ask the person, what do you think could be exacerbating this, perpetuating it, precipitating it, and all of that? And if I can find a way to give the person either the right words or the right links to the right people that can give us some coping strategies that they can use to get through, well, this bush we call life, then that's what I'm fulfilled doing. So for me, my own personal experience, it was psychiatry that helped me get through it, mostly because I realized that I love helping people beyond just physical ailments or just treating and prescribing. But for you, if you take your time, do some introspection, find out what it is that you love, and you can start somehow looking at that like the light at the end of the tunnel type of situation. Finish and find a way to work in what you want with what you want to do with what you're doing now. I don't know if that answered your question.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. Thanks for the interactive session. I was able to learn. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Guamaka. So there are a couple of questions in the chat box. So I'm just going to read them all at once. So one person said, what if on some days, if one wakes up feeling angry and unfulfilled for no reason? You can't just point out why. You feel sad for no reason. How do you handle this situation? Then the second question is, how do I know if a friend is having mental health problems? Then the third question is, aside the Department of Psychological Medicine in UNTH, is there any other place we can find help?
All right. So I'm going to take them one by one. So the first one, where the person says, what if you on some days, 1 week of feeling angry and unfulfilled for no reason? You can't point out why, you just feel sad for no reason. How do you handle the situation? It depends. Like I said, that's why I talked about, the first thing I talked about when I said the difference between mental health disorders and mental health challenges. Every human being would go through mental health challenges, and every human being has mental health challenges in different regards. I don't know if the person who is asking is male or female. If the person is female, it is possible sometimes to have that. There's a reason, men joke sometimes, even though that's not politically correct now, about times of the month. Our hormones actually sometimes do predispose us to having a drop in serotonin levels and all of that. And these things sometimes can affect how you view your day when you wake up. So I don't know, again, I said, I don't know if the gender was if the person is female. If you're female, do know that this is possible. It's something that not many people are aware of, but there's something called PMDD or PMS, is the one that many people are probably aware of. Women's hormones fluctuate to levels that they actually can cause things like this, having certain unexplained dysphoric symptoms where you're just not feeling like, you just wake up in the morning, you're angry, you're upset, you just don't know why, and all of that, depending on, the hormones. Some people get it at the specific times during their cycle. So if you're a woman, check that out. But if you're a guy, again, it all comes down to the same thing I'm talking about. Like, we all have different challenges. Some people are even affected by the seasons, the weather. I'm actually someone that if the sun doesn't come out, a day that is cloudy can affect my mood. If a day is cloudy, I actually can somehow have a mood that reflects that. The truth is, like I said, how you know when it's a disorder is this thing you're talking about, has it started to affect your work, like your academics as a student? Has it also started affecting, or is it so bad, or when you get like that, is it so bad to the point where it affects the relationships that you're in, to an intense degree? If that's the case, then you may need to come in to talk to somebody so that we'll look at it and see if it's something that is going to have to be managed with psychotherapy, or in some cases, if medications are going to be necessary. But most of the time, like I said, if the person is female, it is something that can happen with people, because of their cycle. Let me see, what else was in that? I think, how do you handle it? How you handle it most of the time, like I said, if you're aware of it, try to reduce, what's the word, stimulation around that point. Usually when I find that I've had a patient who had this kind of dysphoria, what I usually tell them to do is, if you can avoid it, any high stress situation that you know that you're going to get into, try to avoid it. If you have personal relationships, because again, these are the times where these things sometimes can play out in a way that it could get worse, try to explain to the person that you are with, either even if it's a roommate, it doesn't even have to be a romantic relationship or anything, that this is something that does happen to you. But you have to first of all know. If you try to, first thing I'll ask whoever asks this question to do is figure out if there's a pattern to this, figure out if there's a particular time of the month or a particular time of the day or anything that you can see that is associated with this, and know it for yourself. Because if you do know it for yourself, the first thing you do is, like in my own case, for example, when I do have those type of things, what I try to do is I try to make sure that I take breaks as often as I can. And during those breaks, I find a way to watch or to watch. Actually, most of the time, I have a particular thing that I watch to kind of lighten the load or stress. I watch Friends a lot. It's a popular sitcom. So any day I have those kind of days, I do that. Now, it may not work for you what works for me, but try to find something like that, something that can take the edge off, not a negative coping. So when I say take the edge off, I don't mean alcohol, I don't mean drugs, because those are negative coping mechanisms. So don't do that. Quickly to move to the second one, person said, how do I know if a friend is having mental health problems? Again, mental health problems could be anything from, is it a disorder or is it a challenge? And I think I hope it's clear now what makes it a disorder and what makes it a challenge. Challenges are common, are probably something all of us go through. However, someone can be going through a mental health challenge to a degree that maybe hasn't crossed over to becoming a disorder, but it's still quite significant. So how you would know usually is, is this person no longer acting like themselves? Is this person doing things that are a bit out of what we call normal or ordinary? So if you're with a friend, for example, someone you know that was normally a very cheerful person, was normally somebody who used to like really take care of themselves and all of that, and this person now all of a sudden has withdrawn, is now more or less not really engaging anymore, has stopped really taking care of themselves, is not doing their normal activities and all of that, that could raise your eyebrows to the fact that this person may have a mental health problem. Is, like I said, the problem, it depends. Are you talking about a challenge or a disorder? But how you would know which is which, the disorder part of it, like I talked about the exclusion criteria. Is this person no longer able to cope with their academics? Is this person now having a lot of friction or altercation, or even not even engaging at all in any personal relationships? Is this person personally looking disheveled and no longer into? So most of the time, if you see that, that person may have crossed over to the point where that it's now a disorder and not just a challenge. But if you find a friend that you see that is struggling, where this person maybe has more days that they're crying, seems to be thinking a lot, has a lot on their shoulders, that could be a mental health challenge that is overbearing, may not have crossed over to a disorder, but still worthy of being checked into. The next is said aside from the Department of Psychological Medicine, is there any other place we can find help? Why I say sometimes when I say go to the Department of Psychological Medicine, it's the same thing even when I have people reaching out to me on Instagram and they're in Lagos, Abuja, and all of that. I almost like to refer people to teaching hospitals. The reason is because there are a lot of people now, unfortunately, posing as either clinical psychologists or even psychiatrists that are not. You have medical officers sometimes who haven't brushed up on any new technology or anything, or rather any new diagnostic criteria and all of that, saying yes, they're psychiatrists. And they know that before, when a person comes in and is a bit confused and all that, you give them Lagatil. And so because of that, till now, they just write Lagatil, they write haloperidol, they do that. And before you know it, I have a patient coming to me with as far as tardive dyskinesia from a person who said they're psychiatrists, which is why sometimes I say things like, go to a teaching hospital, go to the department. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to continue your management there. The good thing about it is that you have some psychiatrists who work there that have private establishments outside, and clinical psychologists as well. A lot of our clinical psychologists actually have their own private practices here in town. So you could continue with seeing them. But why I keep referring to teaching hospitals is because I know that 9 out of 10 times you're talking to somebody who actually has been reading, because we write exams a lot. So has been reading, has had to brush up on the new ICD-11 versus the ICD-4 and 5 that the people that may be in all these private establishments and use. Another place you can find help sometimes. Again, good thing, mental health is blowing up. So you have a lot of these pages now, even on Instagram, online and all of that, that actually have trained psychiatrists and clinical psychologists who are updated and are willing to help as well. So that's another place to look for. But again, why I'm not really telling you to go out there is I know the internet is filled with the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you're lucky enough to find the good, that's good. But the bad and the ugly parts, that's what worries me. So when I said our department, it's because I know that even if you wanted different arrangements where you want it to be more private and all of that, it can be arranged. These things can be arranged, but I'm almost certain that you're going to be talking to a trained, licensed professional, which is what I want at the end of the day. I don't know if there are any other questions. Okay, I'm seeing 2 other questions now. Someone said, what coping mechanism would you recommend for handling stress and anxiety? It depends. Everybody is different. So what I usually tell people is find something that de-stresses you. Okay, some people have even found what they call it, jobs or even life, like what's what I'm looking for now, income, like income avenues and all that, from doing something that de-stresses them. There are a lot of people who don't even know this, but even there are some people that cooking relaxes them, and some people, I mean, even guys. But because they've never thought to think about it before, they don't even know that this is something that can relax them. When I tell people to find ways of handling stress and anxiety, I usually tell them to look for a positive escape mechanism. Again, the example I'll give is, for me, I discovered I never even knew I was into watching TV shows and series and all of that until my 5th year in medical school, where I was under pressure. I had a lot of pressure. And I knew that I needed to find something, and it wasn't going to be vodka. It was not going to be anything else. So I just looked into it. I heard people were watching this and I started watching it. And now I have subscriptions to Netflix, Amazon Prime, Showmax, what have you. Because when it gets stressful, with life and all of that, I find a show that I watch that will kind of take the edge off and all of that. I am also somebody who loves perfumes. So sometimes I just go and watch videos of people talking about fragrance notes and all of that. You see, I'm giving you these things because they are not the typical thing you think of. And I didn't even know that I could actually even care about something like that until I went looking for things like that. For some people, it's exercise. For some people, it's taking walks. For some people, it's this. For me, part of my stress, handling my stress and all that, is doing this. If I feel like I'm giving back, it really does help me deal with whatever stress that I'm going through as well. So I think for you, like what I would tell anybody who is here is try and see if you can find that thing. Look into anything as bizarre. I had a friend who her coping mechanism when her mom died was she bought these coloring books, the ones we buy for kids, and bought crayons, and she would color. And that was actually how she did handle her own stress, how she handled her own anxiety and, the pain of losing her mom at the time. There are so many positive things you could channel all that angst into that sometimes we overlook because we're not really looking for them. And sometimes in looking for those things, you find callings that you didn't even know that you had. So that's something that I'll tell any one of you, all of you, to try to look into. You see, the internet, again, good, bad, and the ugly. There's so many things that you can find. Go on YouTube and look into different stress mechanisms. Sometimes even when you see videos about handling stress and all that, go to the comment section sometimes and read what some people have written. It will shock you the things that you will find out that you could try. But then remember that, of course, you're not the same with everybody else. So just keep checking until you find whatever that thing is that sticks, and then try, doing that. Please avoid negative words like drinking, gambling, and anything that could cause permanent damage as time goes on. Let me see. How can I know what I like? Well, I think I've kind of already touched on that. Can't exactly place hands on what I like till now. I just know I don't like failing what I've already started. Well, yeah, again, I've kind of touched on that. You can't know what you like until you've checked what you like. And because I don't want you to see like a fail, a success type of situation. So that's why I'm saying look into it from a point of exploring, okay? So if, like, for example, I tried, when I first started this thing of looking for a side, I said, okay, you know what, maybe if I had a side hustle, everyone was saying how if you had just one source of income, it was going to be good and all that. So I decided, you know what, I'll get a side hustle. And I had my parents give me some seed money to buy some clothes and all that. And that was when I realized I don't really like talking to people in person. So how do I sell my goods if I don't want to talk to people, if I just want to get in my car and leave? And so I didn't sell those goods. I ended up getting a loss of, I don't even want to repeat how much. And I still owe my dad now till now. I mean, he's never going to get the money back from me, but I still owe him now. What I'm trying to say is I tried that. I failed at that, quote unquote, but I don't want to see that. If anything, the lesson I took from that is I'm not the best person when it comes to anything sales. So now as an adult, when it comes to anything hustle or side hustle and all that, I'm now into investments. I'm now always learning about what to do, where to put my money into stocks and real estate and all that. Thankfully, I married somebody who can help me with that. But what I'm trying to say is I did try something that I found that wasn't for me. So, but instead of taking it as a failure, oh my God, I failed at that, I decided to learn from that and realize, you know what, that's not my thing. And I kept doing that until, would you believe that the thing I wanted or what I needed was sitting in front of my phone with a ring light and telling people, guess what, you're not alone. Life is messed up for everybody sometimes, but life is also good for everybody sometimes, and all of that. This is what I found that was my stress. So it took me some time. I did find some things that were not for me, and I kept changing as time goes on. So just give yourself that avenue too. Someone says, is low self-esteem a psychological problem? Well,
sorry, Dr. Ugwuamaka. Sorry, due to time, I think we have to stop with the questions.
No problem. No problem.
If it's
That
okay
was the
with
last
you,
one,
I could link some of them up with you so they can
Yes,
ask their
please.
questions directly.
Definitely. So you can just share my WhatsApp number, contact with them, and anybody who has any questions should ask me that after. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank
Have
you.
a wonderful evening.
All right.
So the next speaker is Dr. Nzubechukwu Ogamba, a young medical doctor and social entrepreneur who has invested most of his life to making global health space across Africa beneficial. Through the Youth Health Action Network, he has helped more than 950 young people, and he has exposed them to skills and field experience to impact on human health. He's also the founder of Johan Research Institute, and he's the program director at Cancer Relief Africa. So I'd want us to give the floor to Dr. Nzubechukwu Ogamba. You're welcome.
All right, good evening. everybody. Sorry, am I audible enough?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Okay, okay. All right, so thank you very much for having me. Can you see my face? I wanted to unmute so that so that you can see my face at least. All right, so I want to start by appreciating Dr. Vienna, who actually gave a wonderful exposition on the issue of anxiety. Personally, this is something I've dealt with. You know, I have this issue of anxiety a lot. I worry a lot about, situations that are even beyond my control. So, and over time, I've, learned to manage my emotions better and manage expectations better, so that this whole issue of anxiety, I can be better. Can you see my face? I'm trying to see my face. I'm not able to do that.
Yeah, we can see your face.
Okay, all right. All right, so today we're going to be talking about substance abuse. That's my part of the discussion. And a lot of things Dr. Vienna said in her expose, even though I didn't join very early, but I heard a lot she said, and it's all connected. Okay, a lot of issues around drug abuse, which we see amongst young people nowadays, points back to the issue of too much expectation, not being able to balance, stress with, work-life balance, work-school balance, school, faith, school, family, whatever balance that has to be there. All right, so a lot of times, because these people are not able to find a balance, they tend to tilt towards using some substances to enhance maybe their performance in order to meet up. And then when we talk about substance abuse, a lot of times it might seem to be a topic that is alien to, when you talk about medical people, like medical students and doctors. But the truth is that a lot of us in the field, a lot of students, a lot of doctors actually have this issue. So it's a very important topic for everyone in this meeting this evening. But I also have, I think I've noticed from, so far that it's not just medical students who are in this meeting. So I am not going to, my discussion is going to be very, in layman's term, very basic, so that everyone can be carried along. Okay. Most of my definitions and the values here are from the WHO website, and some of the values are from the NDLEA in Nigeria. So substance abuse refers to harmful or hazardous use of psychoactive substances, including alcohol and illicit drugs. That's basically what it is. So now the next thing will be, what do you mean by psychoactive substance? Now, a drug or other substance that affects how the brain works and causes changes in mood, awareness, thoughts, feelings, or behavior. All right, so now just take note of these things I've mentioned, what can alter your mood, your awareness, your thoughts, your feelings, or behavior. I saw a video on TikTok that was 2 days ago, and it was like about 11 or so young men who were lined up, basically chained up together, and kind of being paraded in a community. And I tried to understand what was going on, because there was, there was no caption in the video. So I tried to understand what was going on. So I had to go to the comment section, and that was where I got to learn that now these young men are young men that were caught, or that have been using crystal meth. That's the one they call Mulumili. I don't know if you're from the Southeast, where it is very rampant. You know what I'm talking about. before that day before yesterday, I thought I thought this issue of really has died down, because there was a time it was very, it was everywhere. Everybody was talking about crystal meth, and, we saw videos of a lot of young people misbehaving and, doing a lot of things on camera, and it's all linked to that crystal meth. So seeing the video day before yesterday kind of reminded me of what we saw sometime last year and towards the end of 2021. And these young people were, they were flogged, they were beaten, some of them, went through a lot of harsh treatments, because that is what the society they live in believes to be the solution. And it's very sad, because in this part of the world, we see things like that as as the way to achieve healing or cure. So you see people beating people that take drugs, banishing them from the community, throwing them out of the family and all that. Now, what this does is that in a lot of cases, it even worsens the situation, because an example of a person who is excommunicated from his or her family because of drug use, what happens is that this person is, gets out there and doesn't have a support system and gets to even fall deeper into the use of drugs. So there's a lot of, examples to give anyway, but this is just one simple example I want to use to drive home the first point. So the approach we use as a society is still very, very archaic. People still believe that maybe treating them that way is going to help them. So I'm not I'm not an expert in psychotherapy or anything, but I know that the experts are around, and when we get to that aspect, maybe they will help us to add some points. So basically, examples of the drugs we have, the substances rather, include alcohol, caffeine, nicotine, marijuana, and other medications like pain medications. Now, caffeine is here. I know that a lot of students here are already triggered. I mentioned caffeine is one of the examples. And the truth is, it's something that can be abused, because a lot of people take caffeine to the point that they become practically dependent on it to function. Now that is a problem, because that's what we're talking about. So you begin to abuse it. In fact, back in medical school, I knew people who would brew coffee. Like, in fact, there's this, coffee can be bitter. So there's this guy that he doesn't even make the coffee maybe with hot water or something. He just chews and swallows, because he just wants the effect. I don't know. He just wanted the effect as soon as possible. And I don't know how he is right now, whether he still does that kind of thing. But the point is, it was bad, okay? He was practically dependent on that, because without the coffee, he cannot read, he cannot concentrate, and it was really bad. And these are medical people, okay? So that's why I said, despite the fact that we're medical people, medical students and medical doctors, we are still very much at risk, because a lot of times the stress the stress we go through predisposes us to things like this, because we're trying to find a balance. I think Dr. Vienna has said a lot about, the whole situation about the stress in school, the expectations and all. Now, the report by the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime in Nigeria. Okay, so sorry, before I go on to talk about who and what, I want to mention this aspect of certain pain medicines. Just another example. I like telling stories so that I can drive home, my points. Recently in the clinic, someone came in, a nurse, and her complaint was that she has become addicted to pentazocine. Now, those of us that are in the medical field know what pentazocine is. which is something that a drug that is used for pain. All right, just like tramadol, a lot of young people, abuse tramadol. A drug like pentazocine that we use for some conditions of pain, a lot of people get addicted to it when they use it over a long period of time. So what happened to the nurse is that she had an accident and sustained an injury that was very painful. So she started taking pentazocine, and before she knew it, she couldn't sleep without taking a shot of pentazocine. So at that point, it had become a problem, and she had to come see a doctor. Of course, I had to refer her for expert care, because at that point, I didn't really want to just start management without proper evaluation that is required. So that's also trying to drive home the point. So tramadol, pentazocine, some go as high as even getting ketamine, something, whatever that can make them high, So, so a report by the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime in Nigeria indicates that 14.4% of people aged between 15 and 64 years abuse drugs. Now, alcohol is the drug with the highest prevalence rate, whereas cannabis is most abused illicit drug. Now, drug abuse in Nigeria, I don't know how recent these figures are anyway, because, okay, first of all, there are different, what I would have done is to, there's a graph I couldn't add, and the graph depicts the different regions in Nigeria and the predominant drug of abuse in those regions. So, for example, when I mentioned the Southeast, I mentioned crystal meth, and we see a lot of crystal meth addiction in the Southeast. All right, there is some level of cocaine and marijuana addiction, more, find more in the Southwest, and in the North, you also find, it's different, okay, for the different regions. But this is just also trying to give a broad overview of it. Now, alcohol is, like I said, alcohol is like something that a lot of people easily abuse, because alcohol is readily available. There's no ban on alcohol, except some places in the North. So alcohol is very available, all right? Basically anybody, and for a country like Nigeria, even children can buy alcohol, okay? In some climes, before you buy alcohol, you have to show your ID. But I've seen, you see a lot of older people sending children to buy alcohol for them. So we don't really have restriction, when it comes to maybe alcohol. So a lot of people find alcohol easily, and that is one major reason that, what can explain why it is easily abused. And okay, I think I'm still going to talk about the, anyways, we know that there are different effects that, all right, let me just first talk about why people abuse drugs. All right. So, poor socioeconomic status is one point. Back in medical school, my class, we categorized, poverty as a disease of its own, because we realized that basically every other disease is, can be linked to poverty. Every other issue, every other ailment, whatever, can be linked to poverty. So poverty is not a good thing. There is no glory in being poor, okay? Because being financially stable can, it has a lot of advantages, has a lot of ways it helps people who, it doesn't mean that, please don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that people who have the money, I mean, of course, we have a lot of people who have a lot of money, abuse a lot of drugs. So, but the point is that poor socioeconomic background is, always a factor when you talk about these things, because they are exposed to a lot of things. They are, they're in the streets. They are exposed to crimes, and crime is linked to drug use and vice versa. So, it's a vicious circle for a lot of them. So there's peer pressure and Of course, we understand this point. I mean, we all went, I believe everyone in this webinar went to secondary school, and secondary school, there was a point that you almost did something. I mean, everybody, I can bet, you almost did something because every other person is doing it, good or bad anyway. You might have attended a fellowship because people are attending. You might have joined a club because people, young people are impressionable. So a lot of times, especially when there is a leader figure in their midst doing something, the others want to tour that path. So yes, peer pressure is a very important factor. This discussion is basic, okay? It's basic. There is no long, big grammar, okay? We just want to talk about the problem and possibly discuss the way forward. So I think I would like a little interaction at the end, maybe from your own point and from your experience or the experience of others that how these issues are generally and how they can be handled. And then, of course, for academic performance, Dr. Viana said a lot about academic performance and trying to answer questions of people who have had issues in exams and all. There's something she said, and which I want you guys to really really know. The truth is nobody has it 100% sorted out. A lot of times you look at other people's lives and you feel like your life is worthless, you've not amounted to anything, or you failed a lot and all. If you're on LinkedIn, I don't know how many of us are on LinkedIn. And I always talk about LinkedIn because I mean it's like the most active social media for me, and I see a lot there. Now, if you're not careful and you're on LinkedIn, there is a tendency for you to consume a lot, and at some point you begin to feel like you're not doing anything. You begin to feel like you're not amounting to anything. All right. So it's if you don't understand your own timing, your uniqueness as a person, if you don't have a vision and something you're working towards and you're consistent with that, there's a tendency that you're going to be deferred. You're going to have a lot of issues when you come on such a platform where you see a lot of people publishing their achievements, talking about their exploits, and you feel like, what have I been doing all my life? So it's very important that performance, I think I've delved into the fourth point anyway, which is poor management of expectations and stress. So sometimes, we have our own expectations, and then to make it worse, people around us, family, friends, teachers, colleagues have expectations of us too. So sometimes what our problem is that not necessarily that we don't have our own expectations and maybe we are not meeting up, but the expectations others have of us, it begins to weigh down on us. All right. So we have to learn how to manage that. We have to learn how to stick to what we actually believe our path is, like, to our path, because I've seen a lot of young people delve into a lot of things because it's trendy, because other people are doing it, and they feel like, I need to do this so that I can feel fulfilled. A lot of times you end up wasting a lot of time, even investing time in some things that might seem productive at the end of the day might not be helpful, because that is not for you. All right. I was just reading an article this evening that was talking about talking about your personal vision and being very careful not to always jump around, whatever. Some young people attend every program, so long as that thing has been announced on the internet, whatever, every training, they just jump in and they leave a lot of things half done. Oh, you see that, this skill can, maybe you're interested in tech, and then you're just jumping from one skill to another. You've not calmed down to hone anyone or to become an expert, and you just keep jumping because you see someone who has done well in this specific area, maybe someone who is doing well in data analysis, and then you jump to data analysis. Meanwhile, you've been interested in web, in front-end development. So you need to learn how to focus and do what you want to do in every season. And Dr. Vienna also said something about this, especially for those of us in medicine, this field of medicine, or this, in the health sciences, as it were. A lot of times we feel like we are stuck. A lot of people are in medicine, but they are not there. Like their minds are not there, their bodies, their spirits are not really there. They want to be somewhere else. And I want to say now, here and now, there are no limitations to what you can become. Okay, there are no limitations. You just have to convince yourself that this is what you want and believe that you can do this, and just be sure that this is your path. Okay, because I mean, I've seen doctors who are doing well in tech, very well. Okay, I've seen doctors who are doing well in various other fields, because they are not primary. They don't get that sense of fulfillment, or that whatever satisfaction they expect to get from a profession in medicine. They have their licenses and everything, but they prefer another field. And sometimes it's because of the remuneration also. Some people want to make a lot of money and they don't see it in medicine. So whatever it is that is your own, just know that it's possible. Okay. So expectations people have of you, learn how to manage, learn how to set your own, timing, and don't allow unnecessary influences. So some people who already battling with mental health challenges like anxiety that we talked about, depression, also tend to want to maybe start abusing drugs, because just to maybe either feel better or to cope. So the signs here are just both physical signs and more like psychological, things that you could see in people. Because if you abuse any substance, you already know. Okay. So maybe you see something in a friend. Okay, let me not assume you already know, because a lot of times some people have a problem and they've not realized, there's no self-awareness. They've not realized that this is a problem. For example, depending on caffeine to perform every other day. Some people might not have realized that this is a problem. To them, it's just their life, and that's how it's going to be. So I don't want to assume that people already know that it's a problem. So you look at the examples I'm giving, and then maybe you can decide that for yourself. So irritability and aggression, change in attitude and personality, lethargy, depression, sudden changes in a social network. So for example, someone that hangs out with a specific type of persons all of a sudden begins to hang out with another set, and dramatic changes in habits or in priorities. At this point, I want to talk about the very common ones we see in clubs. At least if you don't club, you see it in videos of people in clubs. That's the shisha, which is very common. A lot of people, even very learned, medical people, you see them in clubs smoking shisha, and I just want to also tell you that right now that it's all part of what we're talking about. So if you think that maybe that's perhaps that's a I would say a lesser evil, please, it's not. So in terms of so person can exhibit changes in appetite, sleep pattern, and even physical appearance. Sometimes you see them very looking very tattered, very unkempt, especially in the extreme conditions. Unusual smells of breath. The body is always smelling of one substance or another, or one smoked stuff or another. So the effects generally, first is isolation. There's mental and physical health illnesses, like some has been elaborated, like depression, anxiety, relationship strain. I mentioned about families that have excommunicated people because of substance abuse. People have lost jobs because of substance abuse. People have lost relationships. People have lost valuable items because of substance abuse. So a lot of loss that can be associated with this financial bankruptcy. Another example, when we did posting in my fifth year in medical school, because I think one of our postings we had to go to NDLA in Enugu. I can't forget that particular case because I remember I met one young man, who is from a very wealthy home, but has, been, is addicted to cocaine. And he used to tell us the amount, like, if you hear the amount that people spend to actually take these drugs, you might not believe it. And, this is money that can be spent, to achieve a lot of things, and they spend it just to get that temporary satisfaction from these drugs. So it's a real problem, okay? And when they don't have money, they either borrow or steal. So making it, compounding their problems. So a lot of them are in debt. A lot of them have stolen or, are in one problem or another. Some people that you see that maybe in the Shaman market or in Aba that they burnt to death, some of them, the major reason for their stealing is not because they want to eat good food, it's because they want to afford a particular substance of abuse. So it's a real problem across board.
I'm sorry, Dr. Gamba.
Yes.
I'm sorry, please, we're going to need you to round up. Thank you.
Right, I can't hear you.
We're going to need you to round up. Thank you very much.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. Let me just.
All right.
So call to action. Thank you. So call to action is basically what I always do at the end of every webinar, every training. I always say, let's know what to do to help. Okay, starting from personal leadership, know yourself, understand that no matter how bad these situations can get, substance abuse is never a way out. It compounds it. It makes your life way more miserable than whatever you feel like it was. So please, never fall back on substances. Okay, there are people who are ready to help. Dr. Vienna already said she's always available. There are a number of people like her who are out there to help you. So always seek help when you need it. Instead of falling into it. Then advocate of it, we're trying to raise awareness, we're trying to draw attention, we're trying to involve who needs to be involved in, talk to who needs to be spoken to and get this. And then laws, and then of empowerment of young people, people that are meaningfully engaged, and have a level of personal leadership and personal management will hardly fall into this problem. So I think that's all I'm going to do for tonight. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Gamba. We really appreciate it. It was a very wonderful time with you. And due to lack of time, we're going to leave all questions. So if you have any question, you can just simply request for a link up with Dr. Gamba, and he'll be more than ready to answer anything you might want to ask him. Thank you very much once again. Okay, so we're going to introduce the third speaker, and his name is Moses Onwobuya. So Moses is a volunteer public health activist, multidisciplinary graphic designer at Peculiar Minds. He's a medicine and surgery student, passionate about building a solid public health system. Moses is presently a member of NIMSA, where he serves as the National Officer on Mental Health Advocacy. Suffice to add that he finds interest in traveling, networking, playing volleyball, checkers, and watching football. So I want us to welcome Dr. Moses to the floor. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good evening, everyone. I don't know if you can see my screen. I'm trying to share my screen from here.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, you can see like the slides now, right?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. I want to first of all appreciate the organizers of this wonderful program. I mean, whenever I see mental health awareness programs like this, it's always a thing of joy. I mean, it shows that we are many steps in the right directions, because I like to call it the silent pandemic. And then hearing people and then associations, organizations pick interest in talking about mental health. Honestly, I almost feel like, I feel like the way missionaries feel when they came to, teach us Christianity, education, and the likes of it. Without wasting much time, by way of introduction, actually, I'm going to be talking on depression. I want to appreciate Dr. Nzube and Dr. Anneke Ugwamaka for the wonderful session. I've been following, and then I think I've learned a lot, like a whole lot. By way of introduction, I will be diving straight because I think I've been informed that the time is not so much. Mental health, this is the WHO definition. Mental health is a state of mental well-being. I don't know, we can hear me, right? All right, so mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well, and work well, and contribute to their community. Now, when we talk about mental health, it's more than the absence of mental disorders. It connotes everything that, enables people to, cope with the stress of life, realize their ability, learn well, and work well. We're talking about mental health disorders. The American Psychiatric Association defines mental illness as a health condition involving changes in thinking, emotions, or behavior. I think Dr. Ogamba mentioned it. So when we're talking about mental health illnesses, we're talking about, health conditions that involve changes in the way a person thinks, expresses his emotions, or the emotions of the person, and then also the behavioral component of the person, how the person behaves. So any health condition that affects this major three components is termed what's mental illness. So there are some common mental health disorders. We have the depression, anxiety disorder, bipolar, schizophrenia, eating disorder, and the likes of it. But without wasting much time, I'll be diving straight into depression, which is the topic I'm supposed to take today. Now, depression is the commonest affective disorder, is the commonest mental health disorder, depression. It is said that most reported cases of mental health issues are associated with depression, and it ranges from being mild to severe, which can be associated with hallucinations and delusions. Now, when some of the common or major symptoms that come with depression is hallucinations and delusions. You hear the person saying, maybe hearing voices. I mean, this is over a long time, especially when the person does not seek therapy and the likes. So depression is the major cause of disability and suicide rates. Now, I like to say the mind, an unhealthy mind generally is what? A working mind. When the mind is not healthy, almost nothing can work. Now, look at it like this. As a student, now you want to read, maybe you have MBA exams to read, and then let's say you look at your account, or maybe you really have nothing. There's Sapa is in the land or something, and then you are thinking of reading. There's just a way, you understand, you will feel, but the book will not necessarily be in your mind when you are very hungry. I don't know if you understand. So the mind is what is the major component for functionality. Mental health illness, what it does, it is when it affects the mind, you are prone to disability. That's the person does not function well. Remember from the definition, we said mental health affects what? The person's thinking, emotion, and behavior. So if a person is, not just even depression now, most mental health illness, like all of them, if you are not in your stable mind, you will not function properly, which is the disability we're talking about. And depression is, of course, has potencies to bring about suicidal ideation. That is, you see people who are depressed, like, or especially those long-term, result towards suicidal ideation. Now, the symptoms of depression can be both emotional and biological. Emotional symptoms, you have low mood, you have apathy, you have pessimism. I mean, these people, you see them all the time. They're just down, feeling miserable, low self-esteem, feeling guilt. They feel they're not good enough. They feel indecisive, lack of motivation, loss of reward, anhedonia. Anhedonia is lack of pleasure, when somebody is unable to experience pleasure from activities that are usually pleasurable. Something the person finds doing fun before, all of a sudden the person is like, oh, more, I don't want to do this, or it doesn't find, that interest like the person used to find before. Are we all following? So these are the common emotional symptoms that come with depression. Now, for biological symptoms, there are also some biological symptoms associated with depression. We have retardation of thought and action. We have loss of libido. We have sleep disturbances. There can be cases of insomnia or hypersomnia, where the person is either not sleeping or oversleeping. You have loss of appetite and even change in the food pattern. You understand? For some persons, they binge eat. Some different, appetite changes are seen in persons with depression, or these are some of the symptoms you can see in people with depression. Now, how do you tell somebody is depressed? When you see people, I mean, how do you say, okay, this person is depressed? People often interchange the term sadness with depression. You understand? Yes, prolonged feeling of sadness is what can be termed depression if it accompanies other associated features, clinical features, that we can use to diagnose depression, which I will be calling out now. So now, for you to clinically say somebody is depressed, people just compose, oh, I'm depressed. You write one test. You are depressed. You just come out, oh, I'm depressed. I mean, it's easy for people to, interchange these things. You understand? And sometimes it's good we combat, you understand, the use of these terms like that. I don't know if you understand, so that people really understand the components of mental health properly. So some of the clinical features we see in depression are depressed mood, that's feeling of sadness, like I mentioned earlier, hopelessness, tears up without any reason, diminished interest or pleasure, like I mentioned, that's anhedonia, weight loss, when the person is not dieting, insomnia or hypersomnia. You have even psychomotor retardation. The person's speech, the person may start walking slowly, there may be agitation, the person is unnecessarily aggressive, you understand? There's for some persons, fatigue, feeling of worthlessness, reduced ability to think or concentrate, and even indecisiveness. You want to do this one, the next moment, no, you want to feel this way. The next moment, oh, you're walking around. The next moment, oh, you want to, I don't even understand. So these are some common symptoms associated with depression. We also have recurrent thoughts of death or suicidal ideation. This is like, will I say, the hallmark of depression, where persons, who are probably not undergoing therapy or who are not prioritizing self-care, tend to have suicidal ideation. In fact, sometimes people who are, who are going through some period of sadness, when they even meet some people to even share these their problems, the way you respond to them, sometimes we end up pushing these people to what? To suicidal ideation. Are we together? So the essence of mental health awareness, the essence of this whole mental health awareness month is what? Is to properly disseminate, information and combat the stigma associated with what? With people sharing their stories, telling their stories, trying to find themselves and the likes. So if the patient presents with 5 or more of these following of these features I've mentioned for a period of 2 weeks or more, the person can be clinically diagnosed as what? Having what? A depression. Now, these symptoms have negative impact on what? On social and other aspects of life. With no explainable schizoaffective disorder, schizophrenic disorder. Now, in depression, you usually don't see mania or hypomania. I'm sure we understand what mania is. Mania is characterized by what? By an elevated mood. The person can just, be euphoric now, euphoric the next moment. You understand? Heightened energy levels, increased activity, an exaggerated sense of well-being. This is what mania is. Now we have understood what depression is. We've understood what depression is. We've seen, the symptoms, the features that these people present with. How then do we manage depression? You understand? As a medical student, as an individual, how then do you manage these symptoms? Or when you meet, or when people tell you and, tell you 1 or 2 things, and you've said, okay, you've taken your own, history, and then you say, oh, this person is presenting with this for a period of time. Oh, I think this person is depressed. When you've done your own diagnosis, how then do you manage? Or when we're advocating and telling people awareness on depression, awareness of this, what do you advise them to do to attain this good mental health? Now, remember, in mental health, we're not necessarily, the end point is not necessarily, you understand? It's not necessarily what we are looking at. We're looking at the process, how you drive, the journey. In part of the part of the project the NIMSA Technical Office initiated was having a mental health community that that keeps medical students from all over the country to unite them and then create this safe space, exploiting the need to stay connected. It is very important, you understand? So for management of depression, we have psychotherapy, talk therapies. There's the cognitive-based therapy where that focuses on identifying and challenging unhelpful thoughts and beliefs, you understand, and behavior that can cause psychological distress. That's what cognitive behavior therapy is all about. The same with interpersonal therapy. But here in interpersonal therapy, the focus is in interpersonal relationship, you understand? So the next is to prioritize self-care. Make out time for activities that brings you joy and relaxation. Take out time to exercise. Take out time to read, listening to music, or spending time with friends. Just like Dr. Ugwamaka said earlier, how she was trying to find herself in different things, and then she found herself doing what she loved. Prioritize self-care. Go out of your space. Don't say, oh, I'm not the outing type. I'm not the this one type. No. Experiment things. Enjoy yourself. That is the fundamental to attaining a good mental health. See, take care of your mind the way you would take care of your teeth. When somebody is down with malaria, they seek therapy. It's the same way it should be with the mind. We already have established the fact that the mind is what is the basis for what? For functionality of the society. A healthy mind is a working mind. A working mind is a wealthy mind. And this is what we need for what? For a sustainable society. You understand? Without wasting much time, I will just run down through lifestyle changes. We have engaging in regular exercise, the whole avoid excessive alcohol or drug, just like Dr. Ugamba mentioned. We have medications. Now, this is the clinical aspect of treating depression. When the person seeks professional care, there are antidepressant medications, you understand, that help to manage depression. And other therapies, clinical, like the electroconvulsive therapy, electromagnetic therapy, deep brain stimulation, vagus stimulation, all these are just using electrical and mechanical to to stimulate the brain. And then it has to do with the whole pathway. But I mean, we're not really going so deep into that. We're not pouring stuff. As part of the management, we also encourage people to be part of a community, have a support network. You understand? People, that you can identify, people that you can talk to, and then they won't stigmatize you. Remember, you are not your illness. You just have your own story to tell. I don't know if you understand. So don't be in the midst of people, or don't keep telling, because the truth is, even for we as medical students, when people come to tell you, I'm going through this, or I'm going through that, or as mental health advocates, when people come to tell you, I'm going through this, or I'm going through that, and you're like, now, wow, you are making some kind of exclamations. You are only worsening the case. In fact, you are part of the problems we are trying to fight. You are creating stigma. You understand? So we try to encourage people to be part of a community, or part of support networks that will help boost the person's, will I say, psychosocial well-being. You understand? Avoid isolation. Don't be alone, because one of the common symptoms is withdrawal. You see, the person wants to be on his own or her own, those kind of things. So at all points in managing depression, we try to admonish the person, encourage the person, don't be alone, avoid isolation. You understand? Challenge negative thoughts, and then set achievable goals. If you apply these steps, you understand, slowly you will see the result. You understand? So in conclusion, just remember, managing depression takes time, and recovery is a gradual process. Be patient with yourself, and don't hesitate to seek help and support along the way. I don't know. Thank you very much. I don't know if there's any question or anything, but I think we are probably way beyond time. I don't know, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I think I'm done with the session.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Moses. So we're going to give a period of 5 minutes for 2 questions directed to either you or Dr. Gamba, from one person. So if you have any question for either of them, you can just raise up your hand and be allowed to speak. Okay, in the absence of any questions, I'd like to give a vote of thanks to Dr. Ugwuamaka, Dr. Gamba, and Dr. Moses. Thank you, because we have actually learned a lot, and we hope that our mental health will be really strong going forward. Thank you very much for a very wonderful evening, well spent. Have a very wonderful evening to the rest of us. Thank you.